We're very pleased to now welcome in the former president of the Montreal Expos. He was a part of the festivities back in March to welcome in the 1994 Expos at a local sports breakfast. We welcome into the program Mr. Claude Brochu. How you doing, Mr. Brochu?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I thought the timing was pretty good to bring you in light of the, I guess, little bit of momentum that's been going on recently in terms of baseball talk in the city of Montreal. Of course, last year it started with the induction of Andre Dawson in Cooperstown, and then a hip-hop video which caught a little bit on fire on YouTube by Anakin Slade, a tribute to the Expos. Of course, the 94 Expos in town back in March, and then recent speculation from Roger Brulette about a potential ownership group that's interested in exploring the opportunity to bring professional baseball back to Montreal. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on what you've heard so far in the media.
Well, I've just heard what the media has basically reported. As I look at this and having been in the business, I don't see how that can be possibly realistic in any way, shape, or form. We have to keep in mind that the financials, the costs of getting a team, and the costs of building a new stadium in Montreal. And we can't forget also that the partners in Quebec at the time, which were the Desjardins and the Bank of Montreal and the Canadian Pacific and Bell and all these various companies, actually sued Bud Selig under the RICO Act. Suing him as with legislation that was really geared for gangsters, and it would seem to me that certainly as long as Bud Selig is commissioner, and for the foreseeable future, I think Montreal can forget about ever having a team.
In terms of some of the possibilities and the climate that's changed since the early 2000s, you talk about multimedia platforms, you talk about a team like the Blue Jays owned by Rogers, who uses certainly the team for content 162 nights a year, and Bell having the Montreal Canadiens in the fold in both languages, and certainly Quebecor looking to bring a Quebec City hockey team in the fold. Does that not change the climate a little bit? The fact that a potential for any sort of sports team, a baseball team here, would have a built-in television revenues and exposure across the country?
Well, it's something that would help, and you're quite right in that the communication companies, the media networks have really taken over from what were the breweries at the time. It's possible. It's great. It's potentially 500-600 hours of programming for a network. But when you get right down to it, that is only one small aspect of it, and you still need to get attendance. You still need to get people in the seats, and you need an incredible amount of money just to get the thing going. And we have to keep in mind that we don't have a major league facility here in spite of having Olympic Stadium, and just the costs of that. And look again at what's happening in Quebec City, where hockey is a religion. The difficulties of getting full acceptance of from a public perspective of building an arena or a sports facility. It's very, very difficult. And my God, we would have to do the same thing here, keeping in mind that in addition to that, we'd have to pay $400 or $500 million for a club.
You were a part of last year. The MLB Network had a documentary on the Montreal Expos. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on that documentary, because to us, from the outsiders looking in on that documentary, it seemed as though the government was essentially blamed for Montreal not getting a stadium.
Well, I know, and I think Major League Baseball was trying to be not overly controversial, but government shouldn't be blamed necessarily. I think we have to accept that fundamentally the problem was a partnership problem, within the ownership of the Expos. When I was working getting a stadium in Montreal, I had the provincial government on board with Bernard Landry, who was the vice premier at the time and Minister of Finance. We had the deal worked out. The provincial government was going to be involved. I had the federal government on our side through Canada Lands of getting the land that we needed. I mean, the thing was all very well put together. And remember, we had also seat licenses that were working very well, which would have been, the contribution of fans. But we, essentially, and it's an old story, but the partnership itself destroyed any chance of, that really happening. I think it's too easy to blame government, even though there was not a much understanding from the premier at the time, Lucien Bouchard. He was not a baseball fan. He was not really a sports fan, and he didn't have understanding. But we have to keep in mind that it was the partnership that sabotaged the efforts, and it was. I think we need to take that blame as a partnership group.
When you talk about the partnership, are there specific parties that were more culpable than others?
Oh, I think there were, but I think it was a collective failure. I think we all played a role in sort of betraying what I think is a trust that that we should have kept in mind, and we didn't. And I think egos got in the way, and people wanted to drive the bus that shouldn't be driving the bus, type thing, and it all sort of disintegrated. But it didn't need to happen. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, if Pittsburgh can have a team today, or Kansas City, or Oakland, or any number of cities, Tampa Bay, South Florida, there's no reason Montreal shouldn't have a team. But we let it get away from us, and we have to accept that that blame and that responsibility.
There are those that say that you're absolutely right, that is the biggest reason, or the second biggest reason, or the co-main reason, and the others would say that the 94 chance of not, I guess, keeping things around for one more year would be the other reason why the whole thing failed, because the fans obviously lost a little bit of interest after that. Is that something in retrospect that you would have done differently?
Well, Matt, I don't think so. I mean, we had Blue Monday, we had the 94 team. We've always had pretty competitive teams here in Montreal, and I firmly believe that if we had built a stadium downtown as we had planned to do, that the 94 season would have been forgotten. And we always had this ability as an organization to scout and develop good players. We did so from the very early years with Charles Bronfman going all the way through. We were able to always develop, and 94 was an incredibly tough year, but I think we would have gotten over it. I think if we would have opened the stadium, a brand new stadium in 2001, 2002 here in Montreal, with the capability of the organization, we would have had winning teams, and I think that would have changed everything as far as I'm concerned.
Matthew Ross in conversation with Claude Brochu, the former president of the Montreal Expos, right here on Game Points on the Team 990 as we just wind down the interview. Mr. Brochu, I'm also joined here in studio by Mo Khan. Mo?
Mr. Brochu, my question to you, if the stadium was built and it did come to fruition, what impact would it have had on the downtown core? Would we see huge crowds going to ball games every Saturday night, every Friday night, Monday night, Tuesday night for that matter?
Yeah, it was my belief that would be the case. We did so much research relating to that, and I think the big thing, which really spoke to a stadium downtown, is that corporate Montreal would have been there, whereas they would not go to Olympic Stadium and they would not go to the Blue Bonnets area or whatever. So to me, yes, I think a downtown stadium changes everything. And frankly, in my estimation, and we did a lot of urban studies relating to the construction of a stadium. The Peel Street Basin down below Peel. If that had become a stadium area next to the Bell Center, my God, that would have just helped redevelop the whole area right through to the Lachine Canal, and it would have been incredible. I think it would have just been incredible for this city. Probably as much along the lines that the casino and the Cirque du Soleil would have been in the Griffintown area.
Mr. Claude Brochu joining us here on the Team 990. Obviously, the local partnership had to offload or sell the team, and that happened to Jeffrey Loria and David Samson. What are your thoughts on those two individuals and what transpired after you were out of the Expos organization?
Well, I think what happened is that, when they came in, I think they were well-intentioned, both of them. And, I think they were convinced, as were a lot of people, that if we spent money here in Montreal and increased the payroll and doubled it, that everything would work out and people would come out and see the team. But I know the first year they came in, I think they doubled the payroll. They created about an $18-20 million deficit, and when it was time to ante up, nobody wanted to do it except Jeff Loria and David Samson. And Jeff Loria ended up putting the money in to pay for that deficit, and eventually his share increased from, 18%, 20% of the team to 75, 80, 85%. So at that point, he controlled, and I think he saw, based on that first season, that there was not much that could be done here, and it was maybe time to move the team. So, and there was nothing the local partners could do about it.
And the final question for you, if you had a highlight and then a regret to do with your time with the Montreal Expos, what would those two things be?
Oh, my God, there would be a lot. I think, the highlight would have been becoming involved in ownership, and the most devastating period was leaving. But, the 94 season to me was just incredible. It was living such an incredible high, and then being crushed with the cancellation of the season. Oh my God! When you look at the history of the Expos, going back to the very beginning, the number of players that came through Montreal, the memories and the history of this club from the very beginning to Vladimir Guerrero at the end. I mean, we have had such a wonderful history. It's hard to really pick something which would be a real highlight. There's just so many great moments.
Claude Brochu, his book as well, if you want to check that out, to do with the organization in his time with the Montreal Expos. It's called My Turn at Bat. Merci beaucoup for spending some time with us this evening.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.